welcome back to the Spiritual Seas podcast. And we're back with another episode. We're going to finish the sixth chapter of the Gita. And adverts, Supriya Chechi, here, the wise Supriya Chechi, to
Oh,
continue the.
okay. Thank you, Kannan. Very happy to be back with this podcast. And Hare Krishna. And today
Hare Krishna.
we are going to complete the last 10 verses of chapter 6, which is Dhyana Yoga, verse
Yeah, let's
37.
continue.
Okay, verse 37. So so far I'm not going to review because we already reviewed last time. Unless you want to raise some particular point, we know about we've heard a lot over 2 classes about Ashtanga Yoga, which is Dhyana Yoga, which is also known as Hatha Yoga in some people's language. And now Arjuna has already expressed that this is not practical, it's not doable, it's too difficult. And Krishna has replied by saying it is doable provided you practice and you show detachment, but agreed it's not such an easy path. So now Arjuna, with that much in place, Arjuna, after having been given a chance to express his complete frustration and bewilderment that this is too tough, is now asking a different type of question, which is a very valid question, because you see this happening to devotees all around you, which is you have here verse 37.
Mhm.
If you come to, here we are. Do you want to read it?
Yeah,
Because
yeah. Like, so,
yeah.
so Arjuna said, "O Krishna, what is the destination of the unsuccessful transcendentalist, who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization with faith, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness and thus does not attain perfection in mystery."
Okay, here we are. That someone takes to the path. Okay, takes seriously to the path, practices, overcomes a lot of obstacles and objections, decides that he is going to give priority to spirituality over materiality or materialism. And what happens then? And supposing he later falls away from the path due to worldly mindedness, that is overcome by pressures of material attraction, material desires, the material taste gets the upper hand. What happens? Genuine question, because by then he's already lost his place on the material ladder, if you like, of climbing and material security. He said no to all that, or he decided to give it second priority. Material reputation and materially having a support system. He's already kind of sacrificed a lot of that. And he's come to take a spiritual path. Now, at some stage, because of his bad karma, or because just that the material energy is so strong, as we will hear now in the last 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, it is so strong how the three modes work and push you and compete with each other for supremacy in a person's day and even a person's nature. What happens if he actually falls away from the spiritual track due to worldly mindedness? And then in the subsequent verse, and at he is asking again, if you just scroll down to verse 38.
This one. Oh mighty armed, I'll go to
Krishna.
the next one.
Okay.
Yeah, this one. Okay, so,
Yeah.
O mighty armed Krishna, does
Does not.
not such a man who is bewildered from the path of transcendence fall away from both spiritual and material success and perish like a driven cloud with no position in any sphere?
All right. Does he not perish like a riven cloud with no position in any sphere? Now it's like, and the analogy is described. Mind you, this analogy is really coming from Vyasadeva or from straight from the Bhagavad Gita. It's then elaborated a little in the purport by Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. He says, supposing, say, there is like two big lumps of clouds are going in the sky. Sometimes you're just staring at the sky and you see this happening. And one puff of cloud, like a puff of cotton wool, breaks away from one big cloud family and
Hmm.
decides to take a different direction and is drifting towards the other one. But a huge gust of wind comes. This gust of wind is like the worldly mindedness, and then just blows this little cloud away. It's neither with the original cloud family, nor has it really made it to travel along with the other cloud. What is the plight of that kind of ribbon cloud? it's very relevant because it straight away puts it spot on. It straight away puts this finger on this point about the eternal conflict between spiritual and material. We see it in Shastra, like you must have seen when you've read or heard the Mahabharata stories, how when Vidura is thrown out by Dhritarashtra, not by Dhritarashtra, but by Duryodhana at one point. The Vidura, Uncle Vidura is having too much of a bad influence in the family. So Duryodhana comes and in a very arrogant way throws Dhritarashtra out. Throws Vidura out. But that is in the sense materially Vidura is completely, he's got nowhere to go. But it turns out to Vidura's advantage in the sense spiritually Vidura has his famous conversations with Markandeya Rishi and so on. So many things happen. But then the reverse happens after the Mahabharata war, when Dhritarashtra, the blind king who's lost all his sons, is staying now as a guest of the Pandavas, who are responsible for the destruction of Dhritarashtra's sons. And from a material perspective, the Pandavas are doing a damn decent thing. They are showing some kindness and compassion to a blind, misguided king who's lost his whole family. Although that whole family, that is starting with son Duryodhan, were the causal factors for all the Pandavas' problems. Despite all that, they're showing kindness and putting up their uncle Dhritarashtra here, blind, and his wife, of course. There comes Vidura, and with very sharp and meaningful words, unseats Dhritarashtra from his complacent existence and says, one is you are very old. You should be concentrating now on, your end is coming, and you should be concentrating on your spiritual life, and you should get a move on. Like get your back up and move on. And you have no shame to be taking the hospitality of the very people who are responsible for destroying your 100 sons. So those sharp words are, from a material perspective, they're the height of rudeness and the height of insensitivity and cruelty, practically borderline cruelty to unseat this. But somehow Dhritarashtra takes it to heart. He and followed by his wife Gandhari, they go to the forest. They really do austerities, and as you know, he exits his body and Gandhari, and then the whole forest fire and so on. So repeatedly you will see this. And here we are talking about elevated personalities in Shastra. Even at our ordinary level, so many things we constantly are forced to explain to relatives, they can't understand. Now, for example, at the time of death, the material perspective is naturally we have lost somebody, and naturally that grief is there even for spiritualists. But for materialists, there is nothing beyond that. They've lost, and there is grief and lamentation and sorrow and memories and nostalgia. But for the spiritualists, we are more concerned, where is that person going? What was his or her destination? What did I do, or did I do enough to ensure that that person has got a better destination? This is it. So I have seen devotees, her cancer-ridden husband, not very old, happened to depart or pass away or leave his body, if you're referring to the soul, on Ekadashi. So this lady was jumping with joy because it's considered extremely auspicious. And the local Bengalis thought she was plain mad because they were taking the body for cremation, and she was accompanying, and she was Western and he was Western, and the children are grown up. But he was not really old enough to pass away in the normal calculation. He was maybe 60 something. So she was looking so elated because he was suffering and struggling for some time. It so happened that finally at home, there was no hospital, and what is it called? Uh, uh, what is that stuff, that artificial respiration? They put you on something, then they will never take you
Ventilator.
off. Ventilator, that's right. And they just keeps running up a huge bill. He was not like that. He was really struggling because it was cancer in his room, and there were devotees and his favorite deities, and he was not eating or drinking anything. So she was German. I don't know what he was. They have been living in Mayapur for a long time. So, but the fact that it was on Ekadashi morning that his life finally flickered out, this for her was a very good sign, because they'd both been practicing chanting, bringing up their children nicely, seriously. So she was literally jumping with joy after the death. And the local people were asking, who is the wife, or where is the family of this dead man, you are carrying the body. People would point to this tall lady, slightly stooped with glasses, in a sari, and she didn't show any sign of grief. Now this is a very mystifying and bewildering point for the material, from the material perspective. So every stage there is conflict. In fact, in the second chapter, we came across a verse which is Yanisha Sarva Bhutanam Tasyam Jagrami Samyami. It is what is night or Nisha for the materialist, that is actually daytime for the spiritualist. Meaning, when death has occurred, for the materialist, it is bleak. Death has occurred, person is gone. For the spiritualist, he is looking more how well prepared was that person who died for his next destination. What did he? So death is in one sense a new door opening. You see, so it is brightness. It represents day, light, like that. And for the materialist, what is daytime? Enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. That's all that they live for. And eat as much as you like, drink as much as you like, have a grand time, and don't think about anything beyond the immediate present. That is like doom and death and darkness for the spiritualist. These dumb idiots are not thinking, they are not applying their mind. So much is happening around them that should make them ask the question, where do we go from here, or what is the purpose, but they're not doing it. So it's
But like
complete. Yeah,
just one thing, like there, like I think that the aspect is like when you're so caught up in like the material conception of like life, like you don't
yeah,
understand, like you don't see that thing is like an illusion. Like it's like when that when you like when you start reading the scriptures, or when you start getting into spirituality or whatever, then you start developing a sense of like, okay, there is even if the idea, even if nobody tells you that there is illusion, you automatically understand that there is like a illusion, that there's like something that's. And so I'd heard in like one talk recently, I think in that Vishnu says podcast, like they were saying that like when things are going bad, it's actually good. When things are going good, it's actually bad.
bad.
Because when you're when things are going bad, that time when you apply the knowledge that you've got, then it can really help you in that moment. When you're like, because it can actually, it can make you like grow in that path more strongly. But when things are very good, no, like you were saying with Rashtra, no, like he was in that place and everything was nice, everything was fine, everything was
Yeah,
complacent. He couldn't grow. Like spiritually, he couldn't grow.
right.
So so he had to like just go and do something on his own, and had to like go and had to
Yeah,
put
yeah,
himself in a tough position to kind of become better
yeah,
in life. So that
yeah.
was like, yeah, that's the lesson, I guess.
Yeah, that's the correct lesson to be learned from these points. And there is a saying, there's like a proverb, no, what, when the going gets tough, the
It's
tough
tough, the
get.
tough bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really true, because when you go through tough times, it builds character and makes you think about what is this of value, and what should I really be giving my life to. Like, so many people have life changing experiences and they do something about it, isn't it? They actually do something about it. So here, Arjuna's question is very valid, and I have seen this happen. I mean, if you watch, because the social conditioning that we've already been subjected to, it's not something that you can wish away so easily. I have seen um, um, uh, like practically full-time brahmacharis here, or I know someone else, like my friend's husband, they don't have children, and he's like living only to preach this and explain this knowledge. He moves around and he is not too much attached to material things or whatever. But there comes a stage in their lives where I think for men, for women it's different. For men, it is like they feel some anguish that what have they achieved to show to the world. They're thinking the pressure is so much from society, that pressure you have to acknowledge. Especially Indian society, you remain answerable. He has his mother, she has kept his
I
father.
think I think like in the case of men, there's issues that like um, men are just told to kind of just like not express any emotion,
Emotions.
and just do your work and don't express any emotion. And yeah, that's it. Like just do the work like you're supposed to. And like if somebody else does the work for you, then you are like less of a man in one sense. Like, you are
Right, right.
not considered a man if somebody is helping you in your work, or if somebody is like I don't know, like you're doing something, somebody's helping you, like somebody else is taking care of you. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's up to a point is fine, your parents will help you or whatever. But then after that, like um if you're still if people are helping you in some way, it's not considered good, you know.
It's not.
And I don't know what it is, but like that's how, and that's the reason why a lot of I feel like a lot of men get into like a lot of they get into depression, they get into anxiety, they get into all kinds of problems. Because
Yeah,
of that,
yeah.
because there's a pressure of that society telling them that okay, this is how you're supposed to be, and they can't live up to it. So
Mm,
they get into these problems.
absolutely. It's both men and women in society, whichever society, like you're saying, there's social conditioning, your stereotype. You can do this and you can't do, and then there is also like what you say, the disapproval, which
Yeah,
people.
and also one another thing is that like if men start complaining about things now, what will happen is that people will be like, what do you have to complain about? You don't have anything to complain. You can't complain about you can go out anytime you want to. You can dress however you want to. Like you can go without a t-shirt, without a shirt. You can drag any hairstyle. You can make it long or short. All these things like like not just women will say, but like even men also will say like those who are like on a higher level, they want to put some kind of dominance. So they will say like no, you have nothing to complain. So there's that aspect also. You can't express yourself. You can't say
Mm,
anything because that's why you find like men are just like they won't talk much. They just be quiet most of the time.
correct,
They won't
correct.
say
Yeah.
because they're afraid of what the society will be like. They don't want to be like they can't portray themselves as like as like a kind of victim in any way. Like they can't be shown as any way vulnerable. So that's
Mm.
the problem. That's the difference. Like that's the difference I feel. That's
They
what I.
can't show, they are never meant to show that they are vulnerable, isn't
Yeah,
it? They're not
yeah,
meant to. Actually, that's a very big trap, because if supposing men are having some issues and some problems, then they can't open up and talk and get
yeah,
help, then it leads to some real disasters. I know some
yeah.
cases like that. At least
Whereas
women
like
are, yeah.
the difference between like what I see in women is that like they're able to express themselves more freely. Like I feel like that. Like sometimes I'll talk and be like, oh, how did you express yourself like that? Like I wish I could like express myself like that. But
Mm,
it's difficult for men because there's that the stereotype is there that men are the breadwinners. They have to earn. They have to do this. They have to do that. We can't make excuses. They have to shut up and do this. If you
correct,
don't
correct. Yeah.
like all that stuff is there. So it's well, that's why in today's time, like people, a lot of men are getting like depressed. They're getting
Mm.
depressed. They're committing suicide. They're doing all these things. All these problems are happening. To them.
Absolutely. So it's here, what Arjuna is asking is a relevant point, and then Arjuna
Yeah,
goes on in the next verse to just say, who better than to answer this question than you, Krishna? Only you can answer it. So what Krishna says, there are two verses that are crucial, because you can see this in you can see this being applied, or you can see this actually happening in the lives of different devotees. The verses I'm referring to are 41 and 42. Before 41 and 42, in 40, personality of Godhead said, O son of Pritha, that is Arjuna, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. So he's giving a reassurance that someone who's taken to this path can never, in the real sense of the term, be overcome by evil. Now, this is a problematic kind of answer, because, of course, it gives a lot of reassurance, and it reaffirms our faith in the justice that God meets out, or that Krishna is finally very fair. But one, when he says he does not meet with destruction either in this world or in the spiritual world, destruction does not mean that, oh, that person will be long lived, or will not meet with an accident, or such a devotee will not do anything wrong. It doesn't mean. It means the spiritual future of that an individual is assured. Krishna is giving an assurance. There will be no failure, because just a few days ago in the Juhu ISKCON temple, there was a big tragedy. This was not Narasimha Jayanti, there was some other festival before that, I forget which one, Ram Navami, I think. And a young man, like full-time inmate in the temple, I forget his name now, it was there on ISKCON news later. He had sat down in the ISKCON Juhu in Bombay, has a big Govinda's restaurant, very popular for years. And all kind of even fashionable high society and people come there to eat. Vegetarian, of course. But this brahmachari or this person who was like a full-time servant there, he and his friends, I think they were breaking the fast or they were eating in a separate section of Govinda's. And if they were eating, it was hot and sultry and there was a big fan, big huge fan to have for them. But this is one of these old rickety fans maybe, and one of his friends said, it's not, we are not getting any breeze, can you just adjust it? No, I think that he made a mistake. Either he didn't switch it off before adjusting it, or his hands were wet, or he wasn't wearing rubber slippers or what, I don't know. But he actually got electrocuted and didn't realize it. He tried to move that huge fan and he remained stuck to the fan. After a while, when his friends looked up and wondered what's happening, they got the hang of it and they jumped up, but they knew they couldn't touch him directly because the same would happen. Meanwhile, because of the extent of the electric shock, this poor young man, 27, I don't know, or maybe a little older, he had to fall down. The body couldn't remain standing any longer. But the fan, huge fan, was like glued to his fingertips, the outer structure, and the fan fell on top of him. It was like a terrible tragedy. He was still alive at that stage. So somebody, there was a big chaos and people ran around and got a stick and bamboo or something, and they managed to separate the fingers, and he was taken to hospital. He was alive till he reached hospital, but his heart couldn't stand the shock and he succumbed. So it's a big, the funeral video is available. He's naturally, his mother and family members were in great shock and they were wailing. But this was a person who had obviously set aside and done only the right thing. He had quit whatever he was doing materially, joined the spiritual path, no doubt, amidst a lot of anxiety from his parents, doing good. But see the kind of end he met. So when Krishna is reassuring, it does not mean that nothing bad will ever happen to devotees or no tests will come. This is not what he is. This is between the devotee and Krishna. And this, no doubt, this particular devotee would get another better start in even more favorable circumstances. Or else, if he is really so purified, I don't know anything about him, it means that they're going to go back. May go back to Krishna or go back to some part of the spiritual world. I can't say, we can't bandy around these words so easily. It is true he was in devotee company. It is true he was eating prasadam. It is true death happened inside a temple. It is true that Ram Navami had just got over. All these auspicious signs are there, but we can't say for sure what was the destination of such an individual. We can only say it was a tragedy, but definitely it would have been a very bright destination. But where exactly, we can't pinpoint. It's not in our hands. This is one type of clarifications is required for this verse 40, where Krishna is saying, don't worry, he will never come to any destruction in this world or in the next world, the spiritual world. Another type of clarification that is called for is ISKCON's history itself proves it. Big devotees who did volumes of service, but because of circumstances beyond their control, they completely fell away from the path. What to do then? What is the answer for this? One case, it is very sad. Harikesh Swami, he became the victim of some very big conspiracy which started in Orissa. He was American or Swedish or something. He was in good standing. He had like made a lot of disciples, trained them up, book distribution, managing properties. But his health broke down and he started getting terrible migraines, I believe. Some kind of migraine or health issues. And when no medicine and no yoga and no digestive pills worked, somebody came up with the idea that there is a special herbal powder in from Orissa. It has to be shipped or flown or couriered all the way to America, wherever he was at that time. Now, somebody from a material background who had some score to settle with this poor Harikesh Swami, he, you can say he infiltrated that whole arrangement. What he did and what money changed hands, we don't know, but they started putting some mind-altering drugs inside that powder. And unknown to him, his whole personality underwent a change, and he just started behaving like a crazy person, not willing to take anyone's authority, not willing to give accounts, because then you can't be part of ISKCON if you work like that. Finally,
how did they find out who that person was? Like,
yeah, there are, if you go on the net, you will see some Odisha. Oh, you mean who materially did this whole DA scheme? I'm not sure there is that much information about that. It is also often, like very petty. Uh, the correct word, I've heard someone in Mayapur use this word, uh, not feudal. There is a certain petty mentality that you see in rural areas. That particular devotee used a very good word, and he even asked his listener, "Do you know what that means?" When I get it, I'll tell you. Which is, I think some animosity had started for the local Orisha people, because he was one of the sannyasis who was campaigning that Westerners should be allowed into the famous Puri Jagannath temple. There's an ongoing campaign. They are such great Jagannath devotees. They have Jagannath in their homes, and why are they not allowed to enter the Jagannath temple? The answer is, the Jagannath Puri management, they are not nothing to do with ISKCON. In fact, they don't like ISKCON, and they are very, very steeped in some tradition. So they say, anyway, Jagannath comes out for 1 full week for the Rath Yatra. He comes out on the road one day, the famous Puri Rath Yatra coming up, I think, on July 1st or July 3rd, where any foreigner, any Tom, Dick and Harry can go and stand in front and see the deity. So it is not that we have to change our ancient rules and allow foreigners or mlechas or Christians and Muslims into the temple. Not only that, once the Rath moves down the road, this one particular famous road, it's called the Rathavidi or whatever, it goes and halts in a place called the Gundicha Palace, where they just stand there, and they are then, anybody can climb up and go and hug Jagannath. Nobody is checking whether you are Hindu or Muslim or Christian or Mlecha or anything. So we have seen Jagannath allows all the devotees to go and hug him. You just have to make a mad scramble up there. And of course, the panda who is minding will expect a little dakshina. But so all the rules are relaxed for this period. It's great fun, because some of the devotees who are worshipping Jagannath regularly, who've had a lot of life-changing reciprocation from that real cute deity with the big round eyes, they start weeping when they get up. Someone pushed me up and I managed to scramble up, and there you stand on the Rath and you go and hug the deity. It's allowed, and then after a few days, the deity makes the return, the Ulta Rath. That's the return Rath, and goes back into his temple. After that, it's only Hindus who can get in and do stuff. I think this Harikesh Swami was part of that group that was leading a campaign and trying really sincerely to influence opinion and change this. At a very petty, ordinary Orisha level, how can I say, someone, question is good, who actually convinced these people to introduce poison? I really don't know whether it was some forces within ISKCON who were worried about the sheer power accumulated and the success of Harikesh Swami. I really don't know. And I don't think you'll find such details there. But the net result was that Harikesh Swami is still alive. He looks very thin and weak with glasses. He's no longer referred to as Harikesh Swami. I think he's Harikesh Prabhu. The instrument who did it was a physiotherapist, a lady, a Western physiotherapist lady, was used as an instrument to put the medicines into his drink, to put the wrong stuff into the medicines that was anyway going in through his milk or water or whatever. So he had a complete nervous collapse. And ISKCON had a huge issue on its hands, because there were suddenly a whole lot of disciples who were told that their guru, whom they had, So there, another question, and then I will come to how to explain Krishna's reassurance. Another which we have come up with, I think, which we've covered in a previous verse, was a black, you look him up immediately on Google, a black American called Sudama Das, who was a Prabhupada disciple, who was sent to Japan to start center. He underwent all kinds of austerities.
I think you told me about him.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Now the question is, Now Sudama, what happened to him was Prabhupada passed away. Sudama was still, Swami at that time was still preaching in Japan. But eventually the sheer strain, the old habits, pre-devotee days, that's him, yeah, that's very much Sudama. Here he's still with Tilak and with a strange Bindi, maybe he was at some yagya or something. But they all got the better of him. He became utterly isolated. That's why they say devotee association is very important. And finally, the gate is very skilled geishas, skilled, very attractive, small built Japanese prostitutes. Somehow he fell into their circle. And he not only fell into the circle, he actually contracted syphilis or one of those worst diseases. So, and he started like leprosy to rot away. But when his end came, this is a crucial point. A devotee couple, just keeping in mind what Krishna is saying here, and 9th chapter again, Name Bhaktya Pranashati, my devotee will never perish. Just respecting that reassurance given by Krishna, forgave Sudama all the wrongs that he had done, obviously, or the material energy was too powerful for him, overlooked, forgave, and ISKCON authorities fully backed this and financed it, and went and stayed with him and nursed him till his death. And because Prabhupada had told him that I know it's going to be very difficult to open a center in Japan because they are a very closed society and that Buddhism is very strong there. So, but if you do it, when you die, I will personally come to take you back to the spiritual world. So they set aside their material reasoning that shame. Look at the sannyasi, he finally fell in with the geishas, and what a wreck. Look at him, he's contracted venereal disease, and as a result, the body is rotting away. They set aside that material judgmental approach. And with sheer faith in the reassurance given by Krishna, the reassurance that Prabhupada is known to have given him, which others also heard. And in the 9th chapter, where Krishna says, Name Bhaktya Pranashati, my devotee will never perish, let this be known. They just nursed him so that his faith would come back. How can you get the faith back of a person? By the actions, not by just preaching some high philosophy and boring them to death by quoting shlokas. Isn't it that you have to, it has to show in your actions. So Sudama was very regretful and repentant, and more than that, he needed that physical nursing and care. Someone who was willing to clean and to feed and to attend to the medical bills and to make life peaceful for him at the end. So this is how the material perspective is very different from the spiritual. The spiritual perspective, always a person is given another chance, because a mission like ISKCON is seen as a spiritual hospital. You're invariably going to have people, you see this, someone comes with a leg fracture, they heal him up, put him in plasters, and he comes back again because that fractured leg was not strong enough. He overdid something and he went and got a second fracture. Someone gets COVID and goes out and then gets re-COVID or gets hepatitis, jaundice all over again. So this is a spiritual hospital. Nobody is turned away. You can't expect that people are in perfect health, because then they wouldn't be in the hospital. And you have to give people chances. You don't dole out and say, you got one chance, we gave you 1 week in the hospital, now get out, even if you've fallen ill again. So this large-heartedness and this compassion and this very wide expanse of worldview, it's crucial to understanding the difference between the spiritual and the material perspective. And sometimes I can see myself, catching myself, feeling real negative emotions towards a devotee who is doing something really wrong. And then when you read, that's why it's so important to read and hear regularly. We are reminded that the spiritual perspective is something totally different from and it's so easy for a devotee to become like that riven cloud. And since Krishna has given a reassurance that he will not come to distraction, it's our duty to help that person rehabilitate that person spiritually. We can never really shut the door on such a person. You see some of this even in the Christian mood. This going and working amongst the poor and the diseased. You see it, but their problem or their limitation, I would say, is that they don't have any real knowledge of what is what. It's just one kingdom, which is heaven, or otherwise it is hell. They don't have in their scripture, they don't have, it seems, more mature understanding of how sometimes a jiva can go through many lifetimes, can travel through many planets, go up and go down, and to finally make it out of the cycle of birth and death. And they don't, I think, even have the concept of karma. That makes life very difficult for them, because they have no explanation why bad things are happening to good people and the reverse. So now in 41 and 42, actually they are worth reading, both the translation and the purport, because he's giving very detailed information. This is the kind of detail that you won't find in any of the other religions. What happens to a yogi who practices for a long time and then for some reason doesn't complete the task? Either death occurs or before he arrives at some perfection, no matter which path he's taken. Because remember, on the spiritual landscape, there are many paths. That's why we were hearing about Dhyana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga until now.
Yeah.
And now we are going to hear, we already finished hearing about Karma Yoga. And now later we are going to hear about the superiority of Bhakti Yoga over these two. But whatever be the case, what happens, whichever path he's taken, what happens is unsuccessful. He's like the ribbon cloud that has gone away. Now here, be careful with 41 and 42. There are two categories. There are some people who have practiced very nicely, but for a short period, then their material worldly mindedness gets the better of them. Let's say they deviate from the path and then they die. Now what happens to all the good spiritual track they kept for certain years, even if it was not a very long period? They straightaway go to the heavenly planets to enjoy, because remember, their material worldly mindedness has got the better of them. That is a desire in the heart. So Krishna has to fulfill that. So they go to the material planets and then they enjoy. And then when they come back, they are placed back in this material world to complete the journey that they started. Krishna doesn't forget. He just doesn't forget that there was a long period when that person was in full devotee consciousness and tried his or her best to please and do everything Krishna wanted. Then they became worldly minded and they deviated from the path. Then when death occurred, they were given more opportunity in the heavenly planets to enjoy their material desires, and then now they're going to be placed back. See what beautiful arrangements Krishna is assuring he will make for such a character, for such a jiva. He will see that they are placed either in a pious family, the Shuchi Nam. Shuchi normally means clean. Here clean means morally very upright. No bad things are happening in that family. That kind of immorality is not encouraged or not even tolerated in such a family. There are people who will instill from childhood God-fearing nature, certain spiritual practices, clean food, clean thoughts. So Shuchina, either he gets born into that kind of family, or else he got born into Srimatam Dehe. Srimat means fortunate, prosperous, rich. Why? Because then he doesn't have to worry about earning his bread and butter. So both are advantages and disadvantages. The first is not so much of a disadvantage, because you automatically are born in a family where people tell you these things from from childhood. You don't have to go searching and make a whole lot of blunders in your teenage years, or like even in my generation, and then finally search and scramble and come to this path. It's not like that. They are already on this path. The other people, the Srimatam, it's very important and interesting because they're given a lot of wealth so that they need not worry about working for their bread and butter. At the same time, because of the good practice they did in a previous life, they will have an automatic attraction towards spiritual principles. But there's a big handicap here. It's very likely that they will get completely deluded by all the wealth. You see the completed by the deluded by all the wealth, and not
that can happen if you're
easily happen.
yeah. You become too spiritually advanced and you get a lot of wealth, and then someday you get distracted with it very easily.
Okay. Yeah, so these are two types of arrangements Krishna is making for that yogi, no matter which path he took on the spiritual landscape, but after a short period. By short period, it doesn't necessarily mean just 5 years or 2 years. It may mean actually a slightly longer period, but he didn't get a full life, and meanwhile, in between, he also got overcome by worldly mindedness. But someone who's practiced for a long period but still is not able to attain perfection, he gets birth in a different type of family. That what is a different type of family? That is, he gets birth in a family of transcendentalists, which is really examples like our great seers and our swamis, and Prabhupada gives the example of his spiritual, his guru Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. Oh God, that's another very remarkable. There are short biographies called A Ray of Vishnu, the Seventh Goswami. They're short, abbreviated. Nobody has written along. Very interesting reading. I think I have both here. I'm not sure of both Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, that was the guru of Srila Prabhupada, and his father Bhakti Vinod Thakura, who was just a worldly lawyer and like a magistrate in his times, very Britishized and Britishified, but always very keen to revive the lost heritage of Lord Chaitanya. So that type of birth is another kind of arrangement that Krishna is making for these people, because then straight away, gosh, you're born into a family of transcendentals. What more do you want? From childbirth, look at Prabhupada. Gosh, I'm sure you've read that abbreviated Prabhupada. Yeah, from childbirth, he's given little deities to play with. He's put in a pram and taken to see the family temple. I've been to that temple. He and his best friend Moti, another baby in another pram. Look at the impressions formed on these babies. Their nannies or whoever would push them and take them. And then when he was a little older, he was allowed to celebrate the Rath Yatra with his little Jagannath deities, and local ladies would cook and for the feast just to help them play. Like we all played with doll's house and teacups, and I remember there was a nice doll's house I kept for a long time. And you pretend you're cooking. For the girls, it is kitchen, and for the boys, I don't know what they pretend they are police or whatever, and have toy pistols and guns. But look at the child who's born into a transcendentalist family where even his playthings are all settled for him. So straight away he gets an advantage to come on this path. I have seen in Mayapur, there's a couple, it's more or less they fit all these categories. Very remarkable couple. I'll try and send you photos. He's quite short. His mother was Australian and father was Indian Hindu. He was a product of the Gurukul, very polished and very learned, and Ananda Tirtha is his name. And now when it is time for his marriage, they found another devotee girl called, she was Rekha, but her is Radha Sundari is her initiated name. Both Punjabi parents, and she had grown up in America or UK or something. Anyway, they did everything so right. They're so conscious, the way the marriage was arranged, the frank way they talked about what their priorities are, the blessings, the marriage ceremony. And my God, even I don't know, it is like one of these two shouldn't talk like that, but the perfect couple are too good to be true. Physically, she's also very short. They physically also they match very nicely. But the children they produced, that son is a small version of the father. But what I'm coming to is, when he was barely 4-5 years old, he would come with this little arati set. And when they do the Prabhupada, the deity puja called the Guru Puja in Mayapur every day after deity greetings or that when the curtain opens and the deities come out, then Prabhupada is taken on a little palanquin, the small Prabhupada, and then they go and stand in front of a bigger Prabhupada. We stand in two lines. You're allowed to go and offer flowers, and there is something called the Guru Vandana prayers that are going on. This little child, the mother would dress him up and bring him amidst all her chores with his little arati set, and he would be allowed to do his own arati. You see, like we are talking about having played with doll's house and teacups and made a kettle of from childhood. This is very remarkable. They are not short of money. Touch wood, they are not short of good health. How are they not short of money? Her side is not rich, but his mother, Australian, turned out to be an heiress. He is the only child. I mean, it's all fantastic. It's like things that TV movies are made of, but it's real. They never get anything wrong. They take a lot of service. They are always in company with sannyasis, and they have had their share of. His guru left or fell down, and he went through a bad phase, but he picked himself up again. Her guru is Radhanath Swami, and in that sense, the children are growing. Now, second child is a daughter, little naughty girl, but so it's true what Krishna is saying. You look around you, he is actually keeping his promise and giving people a head start in this birth. if previous birth they didn't get it right or couldn't complete it. Now, if you compress what Krishna is saying in verses 41 and 42, or at least in 41, forget about 42, that is too advanced for the likes of us. But 40, where he is talking about that he gives a lot of wealth, which is a catch-22 situation. Sometimes devotees find that at some stage in their devotee life, a lot of wealth starts coming into their life, the what to do. Because till then they were managing quite well. Now suddenly we are talking about lakhs and crores and managing the money, and okay, we can say give it away, but it's not peanuts. You can't stand on the road and give it away. You have to come to some point where you in a very sensible way give it away. So what to do? Because this can also be a test. It can be a test. It can mean that Krishna now trusts the devotee fully, that he or she is mature enough to handle the wealth and won't get sidetracked and deviated, or else it is a real test. Krishna is going to watch. So these things also happen. Why suddenly so much Srimatam in a devotee's life? The devotee grew up in a humble way, or there was never any great luxury, but there was no resentment also. There was no luxury. He's generally happy. Suddenly you are flooded with wealth, and there is resentment from relatives, and there are headaches, and there is ill health, and what to do with everything. So nothing should be seen separately from the arrangements Krishna is making every moment for our onward progress. Good or bad, we have to see that sometimes he's arranging for people to insult us and make us angry. This also happens to us. Unfairly someone has misconstrued our words, and I rage inside that I'm going to have it out. Let that maid come. I'm going to explain why did she twist my words. After a while I calm down, because unless Krishna wanted me to experience this insult, to show me, it is so we have to learn to bring real yoga. Means that you bring your mind always back in connection with Krishna's plans, and each situation that's unfolding even on a day-to-day basis, we have to see in connection with Krishna, good and bad. This is real yoga. It is,
So
I mean,
I was listening to something recently that I don't know which it was in one of the cantos actually, but in that
yeah,
Wisdom of Sages podcast they were discussing about like, the source of all suffering is the desire. So
yeah.
it's because you desire things that you suffer at the end of it. So
Mm.
like the equation is very simple. You get rid of desire, you get rid of suffering, basically. But
So yeah, if you
that's
desire
very
a good
difficult
name,
to. Hmm.
yeah, I know, but I think what you're saying is correct. If we desire a good name and a good reputation, and suddenly we are misunderstood
There will
and
be
we are
suffering. There will be
there,
suffering.
there will be something. That is why this rage and anger, that let that
Hmm.
lady come, I'm going to have it out with her. And later, when you look at it, unless it was sanctioned by a higher authority, it would not have happened. Or if I am going to point it out, I have to do it in a very decent way. That what, dear maid servant, what you did was not correct. You just misrepresented my words. That is very different from raging and really putting her in her place. Because I have to see Krishna's hand, that he obviously wanted this insult and he's testing. He's giving so many facilities. So what is he's making so many arrangements? How am I going to reciprocate to the negative developments? He is watching all the time, because he is. This is like very great. Bhakti Yoga is so superior because it is really some place where you make Krishna a joint venture partner. The building construction groups talk about it's a joint venture. You don't actually write off your or sell your land to the builder. It is more like a partnership, joint venture. This is what we do in Bhakti Yoga. In Dhyana Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga, it's not like that, because it's mostly all endeavor on the part of the individual. In Bhakti Yoga, Krishna is there as a partner. You can't do it right. He brings some
Hmm.
development that helps you to try again and makes you happy for some time, so that you go back, okay, never mind, I will try again to, give up this or give up that, or do something which I find a little hard to do because it's physically exhausting or whatever. It's a remarkable process. Now, since we are talking about the Ashtanga Yoga and Dhyana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, second canto of the Bhagavatam actually spends a lot of time describing Ashtanga Yoga or Dhyana Yoga. And in that section, when I was hearing this Bhagavatam overview class, what I came to know is that there is a stage in that Ashtanga yogi's consciousness where he still has certain material desires. He is not yet ready to see the object of his meditation. That's the whole question. All right, he starts meditating. You know how he does yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara. Got it right. Five of those. That is, yama is what you shouldn't do, niyama what you should do, the rules. Asana is certain seating postures, very elaborate. We've discussed earlier. Pranayama is breathing control, that you control the five major and the five minor airs in such a way that you bring complete equilibrium, because then you have to start unseating the soul to start exiting to. That's the whole logic. Pranayama. And then pratyahara is where you further mind control, so that you pull your mind away from the senses, away from the sense objects that it is getting going towards. Then comes the meditation stages, dharana, dhyana, samadhi. By the stage of dharana, then it's just a question of intensity. The question is, what are you meditating on? This is a good question. Are you going to meditate on light, on darkness, on an idol, a deity, what? So by the dharana stage, if that Ashtanga yogi, he stopped all work, remember, because that is already over by the pratyahara stage. He is now just sitting under a guru and meditating. What is he meditating on? If at that stage he still has a lot of material desires, then he is encouraged to meditate on what they call the universal form, or the Virata Rupa, or the Vishwarupa. Because he needs to be he is still so fascinated by the material world somewhere in his heart. He needs the Lord to appear to him as the big huge material world in such a huge size that he actually gets cowed down. His desires are smashed down. And therefore in the Bhagavatam you have this imaginary picture painted. It's imaginary, that the trees are the hair of the Lord, the rivers are his veins, the mountains are his bones on his body, the sun and the moon are his eyes. Because whatever you're still fascinated by in the material world, you try and push the Lord into all that. So it's an imaginary picture that's being painted. And to overwhelm such a yogi, to say that you're interested, you love the material world, you don't want to give it up, you don't want to like get out, look all around you, it's a Lord, Lord, Lord everywhere. Therefore, you will see people who know nothing about Bhagavad Gita or Dhyana Yoga, who see God in nature. You know, in Britain there is this place called Stonehenge. There is some natural stone formation from the Paleolithic, Neolithic age. I don't know which. Nobody can explain how it got huge stones vertical, huge stones horizontal, balanced on top. No normal human effort could have brought that about. How is it just standing there? And more than that, who could raise this and put it there? We are talking about period before cranes, elephants, nothing. So they go there. It is like an object of worship for them. Why do they go there? It's some extraordinary natural formation. Why do they go there? Because it brings up in them this feeling that there are some huge powerful forces that exist that we can't see right now, even if they're not willing to call that force God. So that also should be encouraged. When people make literally a pilgrimage to Stonehenge, for us devotees, when we see it's damn boring. What is this? Yes, it's amazing, but what is there? Just some stones like this and stones horizontal. But we have to remember that the faith of those who are not yet ready to accept God in a personal form, they need to see the presence or feel or experience the power of God in these gigantic natural creations. It's for that type that the second canto Bhagavatam, first chapter, goes on talking about this, the Lord being compared to all the, like I said, the mountains are his bones, the sun and the moon are his two eyes, the trees are the hair on his body, the rivers in the world are his veins. It goes on and on like this. It's imaginary. But supposing by the stage of dharana, an Ashtanga yogi is actually already detached from the material world, then he is instructed by his guru to focus on the Paramatma form. And in that same second canto, in a later chapter, we are told what the Paramatma really looks like. How many have got darshan of the Paramatma? Narada Muni gets it, so we are told. 8 inches is the size, long is the size of the Paramatma, four-armed, holding that gada, Shankha Chakra Gada, that version of Vishnu.
Yeah.
Beautiful lotus-eyed, yellow garments, bluish skin. So that the Ashtanga Yogi is already detached from material desires, and he doesn't now need to be cowed down by the overwhelming huge nature around him or anything. He just straight away starts meditating. What is his object of worship or object of meditation? This is the forearm form. And the forearm, the Paramatma, sorry, that then intensifies and goes to Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. Now, it's still, that's all fine. And then, of course, at the time of Samadhi, they exit and then go further to different higher lokas, Jana Loka, Tapa Loka, Mahar Loka, Satya Loka, etc., to carry on in the company of other Bhrigu Rishi and other Maharishis who are practicing this. And their taste and their joy and satisfaction comes from this track. That's their mentality. Now, the point being, although this is, this is in one sense also a very glorious path. It's not doable in our times. It's not doable even for Arjuna. But what I want to point out is, it's also not something to be undermined or just poo-pooed, because it's very tough what they actually achieve. I'll just open one of my PowerPoints and show, and because this is, shall I just minimize this and then?
I'll just, I think you'll
meanwhile,
have to share the screen, I think.
Yeah, I know. Let me just first open that PowerPoint. It got shut when my computer was doing funny things.
Is there an option to share screen for you?
Yeah, 1 minute. Yeah, 1 minute. I'll just do it. Chapter 6, slide 26, 27. Okay, 1 minute. Now we want to go down to slide 26. Okay, right. This is the one. Now, what are we doing? Now I have to go back to Skype and I'm going to.
That on the bottom right, an option is there, no? Share screen.
Invite, stop record. Oh, bottom right. Yeah, of course.
Right.
Yeah, share screen. Okay, now what do I do? Share.
Share that particular page that you're opening. I think that option should come, I think.
Okay. Share. Right, yeah. Okay, is it visible to you?
No, I think you'll have to minimize the Skype this thing.
Oh, okay.
Just minimize it and then show the screen itself. And then it will come.
Okay.
Is it a web page?
It's a PowerPoint.
So open the PowerPoint directly. It should come.
Yeah, I've opened it, and what I'm doing is now I try and share. Are you able to see anything?
No, it's not coming now.
It's not coming. Okay, let me go back to the PowerPoint page, and here is.
Okay, what you can do is, if you want, you can send it to me. I'll try. I can show it to you.
Okay.
Yeah. If it.
1 minute. Let me see. Share. See who is in this document and get.
Going through technical issues.
Some technical issues. Okay, close this.
It's the issue of the material world. Always there are problems.
Okay, so as meaning review, view. Very correct. Always there are problems. You just said it. Yeah. Now, how do I send it to you when I send it to you later, right?
You can send it in this Skype chat itself. No? You see the chat option.
Okay.
Just if there is, I think you can see one option that says add files.
Chat. I can see chat option. I should go there.
Yeah, just click on that, and there will be an option next to that type of message. No? One option will be there to like.
Yeah, type a message, and then type
add files.
Add
right next to that.
Add files. Yeah.
Just click on that and then select the file,
I see.
then set it.
Okay, let me see. Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Chapter 6. Open again. Hmm. It's too many PowerPoints, so I'm just wondering that it may not go, no?
Just try it. Just
Oh,
select
okay,
all of
okay.
them. This one. Okay.
Is it come?
Yeah, it's come. I just
You have
downloaded it.
to download and go to the
Yeah,
slide 26 and 27. Slide 26
26
and
and okay.
27.
26 and 27. So I'll just try to share the screen.
The 5 major
Can,
areas. Yeah.
can you see this?
1 minute. I suddenly went off Skype.
Oh,
Yeah, that's right. Very good. Yeah,
this
that's
one,
right.
huh? Okay.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So just think, because the human body is a very elaborate engineering kind of marvel.
Mm-hmm.
And so many arrangements have been made, even in terms of breathing. We normally just talk about breath and air and breathe in and breathe out. But there are 5 major airs and 5 minor airs working full time to keep this body going. And with aging, and of course, when death occurs, these things slow down. So what the Ashtanga Yogi has to do, has to revert or reverse the movement of each of these airs in order to bring things to a point of equilibrium internally within his body, to unseat the soul. It's a tremendous, it's a tremendous feat that he's being able to do. So we can't kind of poo-poo or minimize this path on the spiritual landscape. It's just that it's not practical and it's fraught with risks. So the 5 major is, look at the what description. The prana, of course, we know it is to control speech and breathing. Apana, now prana moves upwards. That's why when we take a breath like this, it's coming from inside upwards. Apana is the opposite direction, as you know very well. It controls you to push out, controls excretion and childbirth. So the Ashtanga Yogi has to reverse the direction of both these. Can you imagine? He has to make the prana go down and make the apana come up. How does he do it? By sheer mind control. He has to literally will it to happen at a certain stage. And by repeated practice and detachment. Samana regulates the digestion. Fine, fair enough. Udana, there is some air apparently at the throat that separates solids from liquids. And as we grow older, you will see people beginning to choke at the dining table. The water goes into the wrong part. And the allopath will tell you this: the muscles are, yeah, sure, the muscles are getting weak and they are getting aging. But what's actually happening is that the power of that air that separates solids from liquids at the throat, it's just coming down because the body is kind of winding down and getting ready for departure. Now, Vyana throughout the whole body controls movements in general. Fine. So these are the 5 major airs. And now you come to the 5 minor airs. The 5 minor airs. Okay, if you move to the next slide. Okay, here we are. Okay. Naga, which is Naga, opens your eyes and mouth when you speak. So when people suffer paralysis, etc., it's like meaning they can't control that movement any longer. It's all weakening the air in that region. They can't speak, they are like stuttering or stammering, or they so on. Kurma controls the contraction of the skin. And that's why as we grow older, the skin sags in old ladies' faces and old men also. Of course, now you do all kinds of Botox and I don't know what all you shove in chemicals in to make the skin look radiant again. But this is what is happening. That minor air is winding down. Krikara creates appetite. People lose appetite as they grow older in most cases. The Devadatta air causes yawning. Okay, this is also kind of like something that's at work there. last, the Dhananjaya maintains and sustains the body, and it stays there even after death. It's the last air to leave, and that is when the body starts to decompose. So after death has happened for 3-4 hours, you're fine. The body will stay as it is. Unless it's been a death that has occurred due to some serious illness, then blood starts coming out from the nose and the ears because things have started bursting inside, like cancer deaths. That's why if it is a hospital death, they won't take any chances. They don't want to listen to all this Bhagavad Gita and Dhananjaya air, which will take some time to leave. So what they do is straight away shove cotton wool inside the nose, ears. They tie a band around the head so that the mouth can't open and blood can't come out. Okay, so and but basically, if it is a natural, normal death with none of these kind of things happening inside, and no disease, just an old age death. Somebody was old and lay down and slept. This happened to my mother's father. Evening, at 6:30. So that for that death, you can wait because it's a few hours before the Dhananjaya air leaves the body, and while it's still in the body, it maintains and sustains the body. Then rigor mortis sets in, and fluids start coming out, etc. So look at this is all these airs have to be neutralized, and one way of neutralizing or neutering the force of these airs at work inside the body is to basically go into reverse gear. Now imagine an individual sitting down and practicing through willpower and mind and meditation and worshipping his either the universal form or the Purana or the Paramatma to be able to accomplish all this. It's not a joke at all. It's not a joke. It's not the kind of joke that yoga is made into nowadays. You do some pranayama, of course you get some medical benefits and it's valuable, but this is what real yoga is about. So Ashtanga yoga and Dhyana yoga, it's not to be taken lightly, but Bhakti yoga is far superior, and therefore in verse 47, I guess we can't jump.
We'll have to, I'll have to like stop the session and
Okay, sure.
Okay, one second. And so Supriya Chechi, I think your camera is also not.
Oh, my camera. Maybe I did something wrong. No.
Just click on that in that center button, like in the bottom, right? Like the center bottom, there'll be one video symbol, right?
Yeah. It's come. The video has come. Yeah. No, I agree. It was showing like a cancelled.
Okay. So everything. I'll just open the. Okay. Yeah, can you see?
Yeah, I can see. All right.
So we are on 47, no?
No, we were doing 41 and 42, that the two types of destinations of the unsuccessful yogi, two types of births in what type of families. Now scroll down to 43. 43 and 44 are basically telling us that once he's placed in one of these two types, either the Shuchi, that is the morally upright and pious family, or else the Srimatam, very wealthy family, because he's done so much of the spiritual practice in an earlier life, it says here, on taking such a birth, he revives the divine consciousness of his previous life, and he once again tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success. And the next verse is 44. By virtue of the divine consciousness of his previous life, he automatically becomes attracted to the yogic principles, even without seeking them. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist stands always above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures. Meaning, the last point is important, but before we come to it, this automatic attraction that this kind of advanced person, firstly, he gets all facilities in the family he is born into, and at some stage that divine consciousness is revived. And although take a case like Srila Prabhupada, he would do all the normal boyish things. He had a pistol, and he tried to wear his father's shoes, and he would fight and cry if he didn't get the food stuff he liked to eat. He throw a real tantrum. All these normal childhood activities were there. But at some stage, under the guidance of his father, he very much turns towards the spiritual track and meets his guru and takes the guru's instruction very seriously to heart. It takes many years of preparation before accomplishing or doing what the guru had asked him to do, which is to take the mission abroad to the Western world. So, and the last sentence is important in this verse. Such an inquisitive transcendentalist stands always above the ritualistic principles of the scriptures. So, meaning such a person who is got a natural attraction for the spiritual subjects and for pushing it or sharing it, he is not obliged to follow the normal ritualistic principles of the scriptures. And example that comes to mind, which we've said, I've shared in a previous class in a podcast, is when they were in Russia, very limited facilities in a hotel room, where Srila Prabhupada actually takes the lota or the pot he was using for his toilet stuff to store the extra kheer or rice kheer, payasam
Oh,
that they had made. Milk was hard to find, rice they had carried with them, sugar was hard to find. And finally, when they made something, they had to store it. And I think they ended up, he quickly bought his lota, and the disciples were shocked. But it was so valuable and precious that to be even able to get standing in a queue in that horrible phase of Russian life, in the miserable cold, one of his disciples went and managed to get some milk from somewhere, fresh milk and rice, as I said, they carried, and maybe sugar they carried. But what they had made, and this was their only meal, vegetarian food was not available, only potatoes everywhere, even that rationed. So he just didn't bat an eyelid. He went to the bathroom and took out his lota, which was, of course, kept very clean and everything, a brass lota, which he would use to basically wash after toileting. So this is something scandalous by the rules of the ritualistic scriptures. It is just ashuddha. It's contaminated. That too, you take something that was offered to the Lord, payasam, and you store it in that so that it can be eaten as an evening meal. So this is an important point he's making here. Now, now 46 is just going on that same track, and saying that such a yogi engages himself with sincere endeavor, makes further progress, and finally achieves perfection, achieves the supreme goal. 47, the last verse, is the crucial verse.
47, right?
Yeah, you just scroll down 47. That's the last verse in this chapter. There's a crucial verse because Krishna is taking a very clear position. And this is not Prabhupada interpreting or anything. It's genuinely what Krishna is saying.
It says, and of all yogis, the one with great faith who always abides in me thinks of me within himself and renders transcendental loving service to me. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion.
Okay. Actually, the verse just before that, verse 46, sorry for skipping it.
Okay.
Here, if you just go to that verse.
So, it's a yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empiricist, and greater than the fruitive worker. Therefore, O Arjuna, in all circumstances, be a yogi.
Okay, here, when the word yogi is being used, it is specifically the bhakti yogi. That is why he is considered greater than the ascetic. Okay, who is the ascetic? The Ashtanga yogi, the Dhyana yogi. He is greater than the empiricist. Who is an empiricist? It is the Jnana yogi, that empirically he is trying to study the world and figure out the root and then come to God. That is a reference to Gyan yoga. And the last category, greater than the fruity worker, that's the karma yogi. So a bhakti yogi or someone on the bhakti path is greater than both the Ashtanga yogi and the Jnana yogi and the karma yogi. Therefore, Arjuna, in all circumstances, be a yogi. What's being meant here is basically that you link up with the Lord in bhakti, because that's a far easier reciprocal path and less danger of all kinds of complications of pride in the heart or of etc. Because the heart is softening. The heart is not hardening, it is softening. And as I said, you make the Lord an active partner in your joint venture. So that's far safer. So from that verse comes the next verse. And of all yogis, the one with great faith who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, renders transcendental loving service. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. Now, it's in connection with this culminating or definitive and conclusive verse of the of chapter 6, literally the last verse, that Prabhupada gives that famous analogy of the television in the heart. You remember that analogy about the television in the heart? Is it is in one of our PowerPoints? We had discussed it, how the television is already there. We have to repair it, and like we have to get an expert mechanic, because to repair it, the expert mechanic is meant to be the Guru and Krishna himself. And once you reactivate the television in the heart, just like in a television, you can see images of people far away. You can see Putin sitting in Russia, or you can see Johnson in the UK, and so on. Krishna sitting far away in some planet will appear in your heart, and you can see and hear and understand. And one would even say converse, though that's not technically not possible with the television. So that is where the famous television in the heart analogy by Prabhupada comes. Yeah, it is in a connection with this particular verse. So on that note, Siddharth, we will stop today. On that note, we'll stop today because it's 1:10, 1:15, and the maid has to come in and do, and I have to help with the lunch.
Sure.
Yeah.
So today's class was like very interesting. Like we managed to finish the
chapter
6th
6,
chapter,
and
and
we are
now the
poised
next
to
chapter.
start chapter 7 next week, or whenever we are next week. We will be doing chapter 7. Yeah, and that is
It's about Jnana Yogi. Is it Jnana Yogi or knowledge of the absolute?
no. Knowledge of the absolute, meaning basically it's going to give gyan about the Supreme Lord and how what all kind of things he does to claim back the jivas. What all kinds of interesting. This is again a very practical chapter, because you can literally see these things having happened in our lives. You know, in what circumstances we turn to him. It makes you very reflective and introspective, and you can see it in the lives of others. Chapter, because now remember, we have crossed the first 6 chapters. We are entering the middle section of the Bhagavad Gita. 1 to 6 is the first section, 7 to 12 is the middle section. The middle section is the Bhakti chapters, pure Bhakti. And it's like, and the last 6 chapters, that is after chapter 12, chapter 13 to 18, it gives you a lot of gyan about how this world is set up and how it works, and how we have to carefully negotiate and maneuver and move through it. So the middle chapters 7 to 12 are the Bhakti chapters, and it's like a book. The book has 2 covers, and in between is the real meat, which is the contents of the book. So what we were looking at until now was 1 cover, and then the last 6 chapters are the closing cover. So this is a very interesting section, full of all kinds of practical application potential. Okay. So next class we are
I'll just stop the recording, and thanks so much.